that you know that might be willing to talk to us, perhaps a whistleblower, somebody who's been injured or...
Yeah, there's a guy who wrote a book, Toxic Torts, the tell-all book about the phosphate fertilizer industry, Gary Pittman. He'll tell you the story.
Is that where's he out of?
In Florida. That's where all the phosphate mines are in the United States.
That's right. Paul, looks like we're going to Florida, buddy. What do you think? All right, Gary, so Dr. Kennedy had forwarded me your name and information and said that you might be willing to talk to us about an injury you incurred at work.
Yes, been exposed to a lot of chemicals and heavy metals and have numerous health problems from the exposures. And then, of course, that was during my 21 years in the phosphate industry.
Wow, 21 years. Now, are you still in the industry? You still working, or?
Stopped working in 1993 due to neurological problems, muscle disease, numerous problems that I didn't know what was going on at the time.
Hey, Gary. How are you, my friend? Hey, good to see you. Here we are. We're in Jennings, Florida. We're at Gary Pittman's property with his lovely wife, Gloria. Been so kind to open up their house to us and let us come in and pick his brain a little bit about phosphate fluorides. So, Gary, what made you write this book?
I wanted to leave a history behind on what happened to me and some of the co-workers here in this county. And it kind of gives the inside look at a phosphate plant, mainly the chemical plant where phosphoric acid is made.
Former employees of Occidental Chemical Corporation have filed a lawsuit against the company. They say they have life-threatening diseases because the company did not follow safety procedures.
Paige, they have diseases like leukemia, emphysema, and toxic brain syndrome. For years, doctors struggled to diagnose them, but finally they found a common link. It was the phosphate plant they all worked for. Gary Pittman started working for Occidental's phosphate plant when he was 18 years old. By 39, he was unable to work. Today, he can barely walk upstairs, suffering from emphysema, chronic bronchitis, heart disorders, liver dysfunction, and a long list of other problems. The diagnosis, toxic brain syndrome.
It seemed like everyone over there kept a cold, like flu-like symptoms. We'd always refer to it as a type of chemical pneumonia.
Gary and several other former employees are suing Occidental for failing to provide adequate safety education and gear.
We asked our supervisor a lot of times if they would need to paint off of the car, why wouldn't it hurt a human? And they would say that the human body wouldn't be able to get rid of that kind of stuff.
One woman's husband died of bone cancer before his battle could make it to court.
They messed up my life. They messed up everybody's life, and they're continuing to mess up other people's lives. They need to come in and realize and admit to what they are doing.
Going into this employment, were you, aware of all the hazards? Or?
No, not. I tell you, I'd have chosen another career. I was a pretty smart boy at the time, and I wasn't smart enough, I don't reckon. But see, back in those days, there were no computers.
Right.
You had no knowledge base like we got today. It was word of mouth. You going to work out there, man, they pay good money. What do they do out there? They make fertilizer. Well, we was farm boys. We handled fertilizer every day.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, what I wanted to do is I did not want to die without at least trying to warn people and tell people, if I could have read a book like the one I wrote before I went to work out there, I wouldn't have went to work out there.
Right.
Because it would have educated me and said, when I want to work there, this guy's sitting there with cancer, this guy's over here with leukemia. To me, I think I'd have chosen another path.
What would I say to myself if I was 18 again and looking for employment? Well, number one, what I would say to myself is money is not everything. You can't buy your health back once you lose it. If I'd have had the information that I have now, I would have evaluated this whole situation. If the company would have told me about the hazards and what I was going to be exposed to and what it could cause, and they knew. In 1972, when I went to work, the phosphate industry had been going on a long time in Central Florida. They knew the hazards, and they knew what happened to workers working there long term. and so did my company, but I don't think they tell them today.
Still, huh?
I just don't believe they do. Now, they claim they tell them about the hazards, but I don't believe they do, because if they did, they wouldn't have any workers.
All we were required to wear in the laboratory, that's where I started, was safety glasses.
Let me see that old jacket. You'll see where it's...
It just ate right through that, huh?
You know, you can just be walking out on a pipe rack, sulfuric acid drip down on your back. I mean, it's gonna burn you. It's gonna burn right through your clothes.
No hazmat suits, huh? Just a little jacket.
If I knew it had been that dangerous and know what I know today, I wouldn't never went to work out there to begin with.
Let me ask you this: what are your thoughts on taking us over to the company that you work at?
Well, that might be a little difficult. You know, wouldn't want to get caught out there or anything. They have security guards pretty much patrolling that area, but yeah, we could go out. I could show it to you.
How close you think we can get?
Well, you can't see what's on the inside from the ground. You have to get a view from the air. And there's some satellite images of all the phosphate mining in Florida. And they have got some great images of the devastation this strip mining causes. Yeah, we could go out. I could show it to you.
Up here on the right, we're gonna have the administration offices. They used to be in the chemical plant, and they moved them. It used to eat the pantyhose off the women's legs.
Wow.
It says, I worked at the above-named company, Occidental Chemical Company, White Springs, Florida, in 1968 and part of 1969. Our accounting department was located in the admin building, which at that time was located at the chemical plant. Many mornings when we employees would get out of our vehicles, women, these were secretaries and such, our pantyhose would dissolve off of our legs. It was explained to us that it was a chemical fallout, not to worry. Our boss would see that each of us girls would get $1 to get us another pair of pantyhose. So there's three things you can see from the space station, and that's the Great Pyramids of Egypt, the phosphogypsum stacks of Florida, and the Great Wall of China. And that's how large they are. They have them in South Florida and Central Florida that are 400 acres big. It's a huge operation. They dig cubic tons of rock a day.
What is with the water up there?
The pond water is water they use for the process, and it's recycled. The water's used over and over, and it gets stronger and stronger and more contaminated.
How do they contain it? Just by building a dam like that?
A dam around it, and that's what I was fixing to tell you. There's no liner under that stack. It's right on top of the ground, and it is leaching.
Sure it is.
Into the groundwater.
Yeah, I read somewhere about a sinkhole that took place.
The reason the sinkhole developed is because the acidic water eating away the limestone. And once the limestone gives way, you're in the groundwater.
Wow.
Because in Florida, when you drill a well, you have to go through the limestone to get to the action.
Sure.
When that 84 million gallons fell through in there, it contaminated all this water around.
It had to have.
And like I said, you know, it's just a matter of time before, you know, you have a sinkhole like that. It's just a weak point. Wherever there's a weak point in a cavity in the limestone is where the bottom falls.
Eventually gonna happen.
Yeah, in all of them.
In all of them. In addition to this recycled toxic water up there in those
ponds.
Those ponds you call them. In addition to that, they're taking fresh water too, right?
Of course, they use a lot of fresh water because, see, this is the main thing that they don't want you to know, is what they call the water balance. It just makes them nervous if you start talking about the water balance. What do they add back when they need water if it's leaching?
Right.
It's going away. So they have to add some fresh water.
I see.
To keep the process going.
Right.
The phosphate industry uses more fresh water than any other industry in the state of Florida. You know, and sometimes they have to release water out of those toxic ponds.
Where do they put it?
They put it in the creeks and it runs into the Swanee River. Now what they do to it is lime it to bring the pH up so it don't kill the fish immediately. The Swanee River, they claim, is a pristine waterway. But if you ask the Fresh and Game Water Commission in Florida, they'll tell you not to eat over one fish out of that river a month.
Wow.
Because of lead and mercury and chromium and cadmium. They won't tell you that, but that's why.
Yeah, that's why.
This is just a lot of the documentation I've reached through the years. What really caught my eye was, like we had talked about earlier, the 1972 through 1979 misrepresenting environmental data. And they charged him $575,000 for emitting 10 times the amount of fluoride allowed below. And I was working there when that was going on, and the fumes were just unbelievable. It pit the glass on your windshields, make them so foggy it would etch the glass.
Just having your car parked out there while you're at work.
Parked there.
I mean, back in the 60s, you know, I mean, even earlier, they realized that those fumes were
Very toxic.
Very toxic.
The phosphate company pretty much polices themselves. They have their own crews do their stack testing and all the other environmental things. And, you know, that's kind of like the fox watching the hen house. And I have been involved where they would go up to test a stack and come down and tell me, so something's wrong. This stack is going to fail. You know, so you look around, find the problem, straighten it out, and say, okay, boys, y'all can go up there and test now. I have also been at the point to where we couldn't find what was wrong, and they were doing the test, and we would just go and open a blind in the fume ducts to allow more fresh air to rush in, so it would dilute the emissions.
And I know for a fact that they cheat on these tests. Once you know that, then you lose all faith in these regulatory agencies because you know it's all a farce.
In this past, I'd say 6 months, there's been 4 people that I know of that I grew up with. They were younger than me. They were 52, all of them died. I do honestly believe it has something to do with the phosphate chemical plants out there.
I would imagine you've seen some injured employees.
I've seen people burned. I've seen people blown up. I saw a man killed, and he was going to weld on a rotary drum filter, and somebody had washed it with a solution of sulfuric acid and pond water. Found out later that the guy had struck an arc to weld on that thing, and it exploded. And it killed him, messed up his friend, too, that was helping. But that's a very hazardous work environment. When you digest phosphate rock with sulfuric acid, that's what you're going to give off, hydrogen fluoride and silicon tetrafluoride. Now, even at that strength, it'll eat up concrete, asphalt, stainless steel, even the fume ducts after a while, which is made out of fiberglass. Very corrosive, the most corrosive acid known to man. Used to etch glass, it's used for a lot of things. One of the things it's used for is to fluoridate drinking water. Who in the world would want to drink water with this stuff in it?
So, you know, as we're learning, it seems like there are no rewards to this. It just seems it's just all risks.
It's all risk. It's a big lie. There's no benefit whatsoever. It's all risk.
Let's get to the science. That's what I say. Instead of covering it up, let's look at the science. What do these fluoride chemicals actually do to human beings?
There's all kinds of research out there showing it really disturbs the functioning of the body in a number of ways. Inactivates 62 enzymes, increases the aging process, increases the incidence of cancers and tumors up to 17%, disrupts the immune system, causes genetic damage, interrupts RNA and DNA, repair enzymes activity, increases arthritis, and is a system poison. These are all